The story being sold to the public is almost too neat. A two-time world champion, Pecco Bagnaia, decides to leave Ducati. He signs a long, lucrative 4-year deal with Aprilia. He walks away from red, steps into Knowles colors, and the narrative frame is suddenly a sports romance. A man simply changing teams. Clean exit, fresh start, almost poetic. But that version of events doesn't survive first contact with what's actually happening in the paddock. The romantic framing collapses the moment you ask one simple question: who is * not following him to Aprilia? Because Bagnaia is reportedly walking into his new garage without the one person who engineered every single victory of his MotoGP career. And once you understand who took that person's place in the plans of the rider replacing him, the entire rider market snaps into a Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter kind of focus. Suddenly, you're not looking at a transfer, you're looking at a reset, or maybe an exile, or maybe the boldest, most terrifying gamble of a champion's life. Let's start with the shape of the move, because even the surface details are humming with something off-key. Reports out of Italy say Bagnaia has agreed to 2+2 deal with Aprilia, committing through 2028 with an option to extend into 2030. Long-term contracts like this are almost extinct in modern MotoGP. Marc Marquez was the last rider to sign a 4-year deal, and even he couldn't see it through at Honda before the relationship disintegrated. Aprilia isn't just signing Bagnaia, Aprilia is * locking him down. That's not a factory hedging its bets, that's a factory going all in. And that bet only pays off if the bike keeps getting stronger, faster, more relentless. The official timeline says Bagnaia lost faith from Ducati management after a difficult 2025 and an even worse start to 2026. Pedro Acosta has already signed a 2-year deal to replace him starting in 2027. Bagnaia briefly looked Yamaha-bound before pivoting to Aprilia. But none of that is the real story. The real story is what and who he is leaving behind. His name is Cristian Gabarrini. He has been at Bagnaia's side since 2019 when Pecco arrived in MotoGP at Pramac. He followed him to the factory Ducati team in 2021. He helped him win 2 world championships. He helped him take all 31 of his MotoGP victories. 7 years, both titles, every single win. And reports out of Italy say Bagnaia is going to Aprilia without him. Let that land. And here, where it cuts deeper. Gabarrini isn't staying at Ducati out of some sentimental loyalty to the brand. He's staying because Pedro Acosta personally asked for him. Acosta sees Gabarrini as the engineer who made Casey Stoner click, and he wants the same access to that knowledge, that instinct, that history. Sources inside Ducati say everything points toward Gabarrini working with Acosta in 2027, so Bagnaia isn't just losing his crew chief. He's watching his crew chief get handed to the rider who took his seat. That is not a transfer, that is a surgical replacement. This is where Bagnaia's move stops looking brave and starts looking exposed. The man stepping into Gabarini's place at Aprilia is reportedly Daniel Romagnoli, Jorge Martin's current crew chief. Read that again. Bagnaia is walking into Aprilia to inherit the engineer who has spent the last year building the bike around the rider he is replacing. There's no soft landing, no familiar voice on the headset, no shorthand built over 7 seasons of victory. Bagnaia is not asking Aprilia to rebuild the bike around him, he is asking Aprilia to rebuild him. Now layer in what Aprilia actually looks like in 2026, because that's what makes Bagnaia's gamble look less like desperation and more like cold, hard foresight. Marco Bezzecchi opened the season with 3 straight wins and leads the championship. Jorge Martin is second, just 11 points behind, recovering from winter surgery that wiped out his entire preseason. Trackhouse Aprilia filled positions 1 and 2 on the Jerez test time sheets. That is a factory at the front of the grid in every column that matters. Even Ducati team manager David Tarduzzi admitted in Jerez that Aprilia has definitely made a leap forward in fast corner downforce. When a rival team boss says that on Italian television, the power shift is no longer a rumor. Martin finished only 4th at Jerez and looked frustrated, but the mood pivoted entirely on Monday. He was 11th on the time sheets and grinning. He told MotoGP, "It was a really positive day and that the Sunday struggle was tie-related, not bike balance." But the deeper line came earlier in the weekend when Martin said, "The Aprilia feels like my bike now," and compared the sensation to his title-winning 2024 machine. A rider does not say that lightly. He says that when the bike has stopped fighting him, the parts he tested on Monday improved turning, rear grip, and overall naturalness. Aprilia is not finished developing this bike, Aprilia is still finding more. Hold that picture in your head. Bezzecchi leading, Martin closing, Bagnaia incoming, Trackhouse satellites topping test sheets. Now compare it to KTM. Acosta arrived at Jerez 4th in the standings and left 35 points behind Bezzecchi. He failed to make Q2, crashed in the sprint, took race damage, and finished 10th. He gave the Monday test a 6 out of 10 and said, The new aero is touching our weakest points at the moment, which are top speed and also the stopping." Then he admitted the part that should worry every KTM engineer: he is still struggling with mid-corner speed. That single sentence reframes the entire KTM story. Top speed and braking help Acosta defend on the straight and attack into corners, but they will not help him carry speed through the middle of a corner where lap times are actually made. The problem hasn't been solved, the problem has just moved, and the timeline is brutal. Acosta has already said the new parts likely won't be ready for Le Mans, and the Barcelona test is for refinement, not experimentation. Every weekend KTM hesitates is a weekend Aprilia and Ducati build a points lead. Acosta cannot close that gap on talent alone. People thought this was about Bagnaia choosing Aprilia. It was really about Aprilia choosing the future of MotoGP and locking it down before anyone else realized what was happening. The factory that used to chase Ducati is now signing Ducati's two-time champion, leading the title fight with Bezzecchi, sitting second with Martin, and watching its satellite team top in-season test sheets. Meanwhile, Ducati is bleeding its leading man and handing his engineer to a rider who has not yet won a MotoGP Grand Prix. KTM is selling Acosta a future its engineers cannot deliver fast enough. And this is what matters. Bagnaia did not leave Ducati because he wanted to. He left because Ducati moved on first. He did not pick Aprilia because it was the safest landing pad. He picked it because it was the only asterisk landing pad strong enough to rebuild him without his old crew chief. The Gabarrini split is not a side detail, it is the whole story. If Bagnaia is right, he wins back his career from scratch. If he is wrong, the man who replaced him at Ducati will be using Bagnaia's own engineer to beat him. Aprilia has momentum, Ducati has losses, KTM has questions it cannot answer in time. So the real question is whether Bagnaia made a move. It's whether he's walking into a championship factory or walking away from the only setup that ever made him a champion. And that's a question only time and a very quiet 40-year-old Italian engineer will answer.